He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Welcome to another episode of No Stupid Questions, the podcast that wants to find you answers to all your pressing money questions, and not just how am I going to pay for all the Christmas presents that my kids have decided they want. I'm Susan Edmunds, I'm RNZ's money correspondent, and I'm joined by Justin Gregory.
How you doing? Merry Christmas.
Hoping it's sunny and summery where you are. It's actually raining around me. I've really appreciated everyone who's taken the time to send us questions, even though we're in that crunchy, busy time of year for a lot of people. Please send any that you've been thinking about to questions@rnz.co.nz. You can do an email or a voice memo is even better. We've still got a couple of weeks until our Christmas break, and I need some light reading to keep me occupied over the holidays too.
Our first question in today's episode comes from Craig. He wants to know what a capital changes notice is, and now so do I. He said he noticed a message from BPG, which is Black Pearl Group, and he wondered what it meant. He said, is it just that they're issuing new shares? And if that's what it means, does that mean they are devaluing or watering down the worth of current shares?
To answer this one, I spoke to Rupert Carlyon, who's the founder of Koura, a Kiwisaver provider. He says Black Pearl has been working through a capital raise, which is where a company tries to get more money, basically. And this is probably one of a stream of announcements that have gone through to investors.
So they'll be subscribed to alerts for NZX on the NZX website for that company, and that they'll get, like, if you look, there's probably been 5 or 6 of these capital notices. Not capital notices, but 5 or 6 announcements related to that over the better part of the last 2 or 3 weeks, some of them are capital raise related. They've then done their results. It's just one of those things that you get. So what they have to do is, once they've allotted the shares, which means once the shares have been issued, everything's been dealt with, then that's why they put the capital issued notice out, so that everyone now has full clarity around how many shares are on issue, which is the most important metric for valuation.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It comes back to, and the point that he raised is 100% right. So does this mean dilution? And yes, it will. Typically, when you've got a board, the board needs to consider, do the costs of dilution, do the benefits from the capital raise outweigh the costs of the dilution? So the board would have had a conversation going, we need to raise capital, that's going to dilute existing shareholders. Do we think that the outcome is going to be net better for shareholders, right? So under this example, I'm guessing they didn't really have a choice. They need to raise money to be able to kind of continue their growth ambitions and to fund what they want to do as a business. In a more considered business, they'll go, hey, there's an acquisition at play, there's something that I'm doing. Do I think that is going to be accretive to the existing shareholders by issuing new shares to do it? And so I've just used some fancy words, but generally, in finance speak, what we talk about accretion and dilution. And so the big ultimate test is earnings per share. And fundamentally, do we think earnings per share are going to be higher after we've kind of made an acquisition or done something to raise capital or not? If the answer is not, probably shouldn't be doing it. But if it's positive and your earnings per share are higher, that means it's accretive, and that means that the benefits of what the company are trying to do outweigh the dilution impact as well.
Now, we've got a question from, me, frankly. Susan, I want to know something. When I'm driving around Wellington, sometimes I pull into a petrol pump service station and I look at the machine and I go to prepay and it says a hold may be placed on your credit card. And frankly, I panic a little bit and I go to a different petrol station that doesn't say that. What is that, and what does it mean, and am I panicking unnecessarily?
I can see why that sounds alarming. This basically gives the company reassurance that you can pay for the petrol that you're going to put into your car. I asked Z Energy for a proper answer. They said when people use the pay at the pump option at their Z stations, a hold of up to $250 can be requested against their account. So that's if you're filling an as yet unknown amount of petrol. If you were to select $50 that you were putting into your car, it would just put a hold in for $50. But if you're filling up, you don't know how much it's it's going to cost. It could be $250 that gets authorised on your account. And if you have less than that available, it could be limited to the amount that you have, or it could be declined. And they say the hold is usually released shortly after the transaction is complete, but it can sometimes take a bit longer. And this is similar, I think, to what hotels sometimes do when you check in, where they put a hold of a couple of $100s or whatever on your account in case you rack up the minibar. So it's just reassurance for them, I suppose, that you're good for whatever you're taking.
Reassuring for them. The hold is usually released shortly after the
Right,
transaction is complete, but can sometimes take longer. How longer is longer? Anyway,
That's right.
Yeah.
They say if things are taking longer than you expect to clear, you can hit up your bank for that.
Our next question comes from Robert, who wants to know what might have happened to his daughter's super in Australia. She lived and worked there for 11 years, but came home to New Zealand and then lived here for 5 years before she died 4 years ago. I'm sorry about that, Robert. He wants to know whether her super would be null and void now.
It's definitely not void. It'll be somewhere and her family should be able to access it. Ana-Marie Lockyer, who's Chief Executive at Pi Funds, said in Australia when a person dies, any super they have, plus any life insurance benefits that might be attached to their fund, becomes part of a superannuation death benefit. And that money can usually be claimed by the next of kin or the estate. She said if Robert's daughter had an Australian super fund, the balance would still be held there unless it's become lost or inactive, in which case it might have been transferred to the Australian Tax Office's unclaimed super register. Either way, you can still claim it. And the normal process is to contact the super fund or the ATO if you don't know which fund it's with, and then follow their requirements, which often include probate, letters of administration, that sort of thing. So she says the next step for Robert is to contact the Australian Tax Office or use their online Lost Super search to locate the account and then just begin the claims process, and it should be possible.
Best of luck to you, Robert. Now, we have 2 questions from people wanting to know about their money and their kids. So let's go through them in a quick fire-ish kind of way. The first, Marcia, says, my 10-year-old has New Zealand $2,000 in the Co-op Bank, and although they pay an annual dividend, I feel there must be a way for her to earn a better return.
You probably can earn a better return by investing the money, depending on what your plan is for it. You could maybe put it in a fund that invests in things like shares. That's a much higher risk option than having it in a bank account, but it should give better returns over a longer period of time if you have the time to wait it out. If you don't have long enough to take that much risk, even a term deposit might give a better return. I see Co-op's Step Saver is paying about 0.55% in interest if you aren't making deposits every month, and you can get about 3.4% in a bank term deposit. That isn't personalised advice, and you probably should get some personalised advice on that one.
Now, next one from Amy, who says, my son is 11 years old and we've been saving money for if and when he attends university, with a set amount going in each fortnight. This has been in a Simplicity Growth Fund, and the question is this the best place to save this money, and what are the things that should be considered about it?
I think that's a good option. At 11, university is still a fair while away. My son is also 11 and we put money aside for him regularly. At the moment, we do that in Sharesies, and it's spread across a range of funds and some companies that he's interested in so that he can learn how the share market works. Also, that's not personalised advice. And generally with, 7 or so years until you want the money, it is okay to have a bit more risk. As you draw closer to needing to withdraw it, you could, de-risk a bit.
Again, not personalised advice. Audience question time. Last week, we asked you what contribution rates Kiwisaver started with when it began way back and beyond. I can't remember. It's been in the news this month because the National Party says it wants to push up contributions.
Yeah, it's interesting how much the Kiwisaver settings have changed over the years since 2007. I'm writing a book about Kiwisaver at the moment, and I keep finding things that I've forgotten. When the scheme launched, we had a minimum 4% contribution from savers, and the employer's contribution started at 1% with the intention of increasing to 2%, then 3%, then 4% year by year over the years. There were also fee subsidies, the first home deposit subsidy, and a $1,000 kickstart from the government. Then in 2009, the minimum changed from 4% to 2%, and the employer contribution dropped to 2% too. So
nice plug for your book there, Susan. Any publishers listening to this episode?
Yeah, nice.
Send your questions and your offers to susan.edmunds@rnz.co.nz. And our question for this week is one that might stretch your memories a bit. What was the first bank to open in New Zealand?
Send your answers as well as any questions you have to questions@rnz.co.nz. No Stupid Questions with Susan Edmunds was written and presented by Susan Edmunds. That's me. Justin Gregory is the producer. The engineer is Steve Burridge. Thanks to Craig, Robert, Marcia, Amy and Justin for their questions, and Rupert Carlyon and Ana-Marie Lockyer for their answers. Follow and listen to No Stupid Questions with Susan Edmunds on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or any podcast app so you don't miss an episode. Bye for now.